Welcome to Poets Corner with Mirna El Sayed. Today we're gonna analyze the poem I'm Nobody, Who Are You by Emily Dickinson. I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us. Don't tell, they'd advertise, you know? How dreary to be somebody. How public like a frog to tell one's name the livelong day to an admiring bog. Now we're gonna discuss the title and the rhyme scheme. The name of my chosen poem, as stated before, is I'm Nobody, Who Are You by Emily Dickinson. This poem consists of 2 stanzas, 8 lines, 4 lines in each stanza. Once I saw the title, it grabbed my attention immediately. It's very rare to find a question mark in a title, let alone finding a question directed to the reader in the title. Moving on to the rhyme scheme of this poem. So the rhyme scheme is AA, BC, and for the second stanza is DE, FE. In every stanza, there are 2 rhyming words. For example, in the first stanza, there is I'm nobody, who are you, rhyming with are you nobody too, so the last words rhyme with each other. Both are the letter A in the rhyme scheme. As for the second stanza, there is how public like a frog, rhyming with to an admiring bog. So the last words, frog and bog, rhyme with each other. Both have the letter E in the rhyme scheme. Now we're gonna discuss the tone of the poem. The tone is humorous and sarcastic. Knowing about Emily Dickinson, all her poems are dark and most of which talk about death. So her using this kind of tone is a bit strange and different. As stated, the tone is humorous and sarcastic, which kind of portrays Emily's innocent humor and relates it to childhood, I think. For example, when she said, I'm nobody, who are you? Are you nobody too? It's like she's introducing herself and trying to be friends with the reader. As a child, we used to make friends in the simplest ways, saying the randomest things. We used to strive to find any friendship in any possible way. Just like she's doing right there. She's saying, are you nobody too? Let's be together, let's be friends. Moving on to literary devices. There is only one literary device, which is a simile. So she says, how public like a frog. The use of the word frog here is very unexpected and random. She compares the people who are public and the people who are actually somebodies are like a frog, which is very strange. Knowing that Dickinson always uses doll figures and relates it to death makes this part of the poem even stranger. In how public like a frog, Emily's actually being sarcastic and making fun of the common somebodies in the world. She compares and symbolizes being somebody to being a frog, which is very not unique and does nothing different than being a regular frog. So in her mind, she actually thinks being somebody is just like being a normal, everyday frog that's useless. Just like being a somebody. Like a frog is gonna be a frog and somebody's gonna be somebody. Just like anybody, nothing different. Now we're gonna discuss the literal meaning of the poem. The poet is literally saying that she is nobody and asking the reader about who they are. She also tells the reader not to say that they are nobodies in order to keep their nobody identity a secret, because being somebody is boring. She also says that the frog is admired by the wilderness. Now we're gonna discuss the figurative meaning of the poem. Figuratively, she is making herself somebody by capitalizing the N in nobody, just like in the picture here. Also, she figuratively says that being somebody is very public, just like being a frog in June. It's very expected and very normal just to be a frog or to be somebody, and she doesn't like that. In other words, she expresses how boring and humiliating it is to be somebody. She thinks that being public, just like everyone else, is so mediocre and expected, just like being a frog that ribbits its own name for the entire month of June to its admiring habitat and wilderness. A frog is expected to ribbit, which makes a frog very boring and not amusing. Moreover, her capitalizing the letter F in frog makes the frog either a name or of an actual person or just a name of a frog. Last but not least, we're gonna discuss the theme of this poem. I think that the theme of this poem is identity, because throughout the poem, Dickinson was trying to express that there is a fine line between being a somebody and being a nobody. She also thinks that being somebody, as I said before, is very boring and expected, and she wouldn't want to be a somebody ever. For example, she says, how public like a frog, meaning that being somebody is just so public, just like being a frog that keeps singing to the muddy forest in June. It's so boring and unamusing. In other words, she wouldn't want to be a somebody because in her point of view it's very traditional and boring. In her point of view, being somebody is cliche, and she'd rather be a nobody than being somebody who is just like anybody in the world. But the interesting thing is she also uses nobody capitalized, which till this day we cannot figure out if it's just a typo because she capitalizes things throughout her entire poem. She is known by capitalizing letters, just random letters throughout her poems in general. So till this day, nobody's sure that she actually meant that or she didn't. But it's very ironic that she used the capital N for nobody, making her an actual somebody. So on that note, I'm gonna have to end this video and we shall meet again in another Poet's Corner.